Purpose-driven art.
All right, Jeevo, what's up, buddy? How you doing? Let me do the intro and all that. Hi, my name is artist Daniel Quinones. This is MLoveizmTV, and I'm with
Jeevo or Rajeev or whatever you want to call me.
Jeevo. It's good to have you on here. We've had several conversations about numerous things, and I wanted to get you on here, especially with what's going on collectively around. And get your feedback as far as, at the end of this, I want people to gain information that will bring hope to what they're doing right now. Whether, to me, I think everybody's an artist, so this is about the arts, so we'll talk about all that kind of stuff, but just with everything going on, it's pretty crazy. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, okay, we've talked about this before. What does it mean to find your identity, worth, and destiny as a creative? Like, what, I know that's a loaded question, so we can chop it up. But as far as what I'm trying to say is, lots of artists get lost in who they are when they're not validated in the art they create, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as far as the question in knowing what your identity is, your worth, and where you're going into the future, like what that looks like, how do you navigate that as an artist? Because first of all, let's back up and then answer the question. Let people know who you are and what you do and all that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. I think this is a great platform, and that's a great question. So my name is Rajeev Nandakumaran. That's my government name. And I'm from Sri Lanka, and I'm an immigrant, immigrated to the States. Currently, I'm an artist as a musician. I'm a solo artist. I go as Jeevo, singer-songwriter, rapper. I have 6 albums out. I'm working on my 7th. I'm also an entrepreneur. My wife and I own a preschool that has a 1-for-1 model. It's called Bridge Preschool. For every child enrolled, one child gets free education in another part of the world. So currently we're piloting our program in Egypt, and then next year we hope to go to Sri Lanka and continue the model all over the world. I'm also in land development and affordable housing. That's my other business. And I'm also in ministry. I work for a church. I'm in seminary. So I do multiple things. Primarily, though, everything stems from the vantage point of a creative. So I do all of that as an artist. So I might do business, but I'm still an artist. I'm an artistic businessman. That's really how I see the world, and that's really how I navigate as a father and a husband, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's good. And I got that email. I do want to talk to you about all that land stuff. We'll talk about that later.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the question is, let me read it again. What does it mean to find your identity, worth, and destiny as a creative?
Yeah, so you cannot find your identity as a creative, as an artist, because it will always fail you. And I think it's good to identify who you are, but you can't necessarily find your identity in those identification points. Because if you don't have your identity in something more solid, you will always be at the whims of people's applauses and also their critique. And you are beyond that. You are more than that as a creative. So I don't find my identity at all in how good I am as an artist, or how big I get, or how small I get, because that's you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, because everything's relative. It's funny because you have these huge artists that have mass appeal, and they still struggle with the same things that independent artists or people at a much smaller scale would struggle with. So what does that tell you? Inherently, it tells you that if you find your identity in the things that you do, you will always be hollow, and you will always be empty inside. So for me, my identity is in the fact that I'm loved by God. And everything after that is relative. Maybe I'll be successful, maybe I'll be wealthy, or maybe I'll lose everything. But for me, my identity stems in the fact that I'm a child of God, and nothing really interferes with that. I think it's interesting because society will call you different things, and it's appropriate. At, you know, when I was younger, I would hate when people would call me a Christian musician, because I didn't really know music could get baptized. You know, like, why are you calling, if a Muslim does music, you don't call them a Muslim musician. But it seems like there's these industries that kind of want to put you in a certain space and in a box. So before, I used to get upset. It used to annoy me. But now, if that's helpful for you, if you want to call me a Christian artist or Christian musician, then that's good. As long, if it's helpful for you, then use it. Because I'm not defined by any form of label or category that the world or even the church would want to put me as. Because I believe that as creatives, you're supposed to defy categories, and you're not trying to be unique. You just live, and then whatever the form follows the function. So if you function properly, it'll take whatever form it needs to take and speak to different kinds of people. And lastly, I would say
Hold on. That was good. Let me back that up.
Okay.
I want that to sink into people. There's two things that you said that really clearly answered the question as far as your identity in the arts, and and let me know if I got this correct, that you are loved by God. That's where your identity comes from. It has nothing to do with what you create.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the next thing that you said was form follows function. I want to pause on that part because that's what you do, but I've never heard it, and I'm sure a lot of other people haven't heard it. What does that mean in a very practical and tangible way for someone to understand and then do?
Right. So we live in a culture where everybody wants to focus on the form. It's almost like if you paint a certain picture, if you paint a certain narrative, then that's what's going to convey who you are. But really, if you function properly, then that will communicate to the external world exactly who you are. So in other words, we need to be people who are more concerned with action and the substance of our being versus telling people what we want to do and describing ourselves all the time. So if you function properly, if you do the things that you're called to do in this world, it will take on a form that's relevant to where you need to go. For some people, you know, like I function as an artist, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a businessman. These are all things that I function in. And the makeup of that takes a form as, oh yeah, this guy does this guy does that. But if I focus too much on what it looks like, then it won't help me be my most authentic self. So what I need to focus on, don't worry about what it looks like, just function properly, and then it will look like whatever it needs to look like.
But
right?
okay, yeah, that I get that, but and this is what I mean in a very rudimentary way of explaining, what does that mean, function? How should an artist function? Because you already said that you know your identity. A lot of artists don't. And I think that your function, from what I hear from you, is tied into you understanding your identity. So it's very clear. But if someone's identity is lost in the art and they're just functioning to get more likes on social media or get more followers and stuff like that, then that whole concept gets convoluted. So for someone, you know, who's hearing this for the first time, walk them through what function looks like as an artist.
So all you got to do is figure out what are you called to do in this world. Okay, so if it means you need to paint, if it means you need to write music, if it means you need to be on the business side of things, just do that, and don't worry about what the fruits of it will be. So I think so often we're always concerned with what is the byproduct or what is the reward and what is the consequence of what I do is. Cut yourself from that. Just worry about what it is that you are supposed to do. Don't worry about the scope. Don't worry about how big, how wide, how small. Don't worry about even if you're going to get compensated for it financially. Because a lot of times, and artists don't want to hear this, but I'm a different kind of artist. Like a lot of times you actually won't be compensated for your art, but you'll be compensated somewhere else that will give you the means to still pursue your art. So for example, like, I mean, I used to make a little bit of money off of music, but every musician knows it's not real. You don't really make the music industry is such right now where you can't really function well from a business standpoint. You can't really make a living off of music unless you're okay with making scraps. So for me, I don't worry about what my music is going to do for my brand or what it's going to do for my income level or whatever. I just do what I'm called to do, which is make an album. Just write the music and put it out on Spotify, Apple Music, everything, and then leave it. Don't obsess over it. Just leave it.
Okay, but your album and your writing though has a purpose. There's chunks of information in there. It's rooted in you being a father, a husband, you working with the community. I've heard your albums. It's not just a writing thing on dope beats. You know what I mean? And I think this is also where the tie gets lost, because when the artist is not is only pursuing the form, he gets wrapped up in duplicating one hot record over and over again, and this kills the creative process. And then you just become a monkey, really. And then that's very hard, because then they're getting accolades or likes on that one song. Then it goes downhill from there, and then they get depressed, and then you get into that artistic spiral downhill type of thing. So as far as when it comes to creating, you said sit down, write an album, put it out, leave it alone. But the sit down and writing, I'm sure, has a whole nother process to it.
Yeah. So that's completely different.
Yeah. So real quick, well, I mean, we'll flow, however, but when you sit down and do the creative writing process, where are you at mentally? What is it on those 4 minutes or 3 minutes are you trying to achieve lyrically that is left with the audience?
Yes, I think the process depends on how you create best. And so for me, I'm very good with big pictures. What I'm not good with is production in a way that's excellent. I can produce, but I'm not an excellent producer. So what I do is I know what I'm good at, and I know what other people are good at. And so what I try to do is for me, it's all spiritual. So I pray and I sense who I'm led to work with. Once I do that, I have a way of being able to bring a song idea or a concept, and then we just build on that. And I don't try to own the song. Like I don't try and take control of the song.
Yeah, I get that. But the beginning process was that you said it's very spiritual.
Yes.
Kind of, what do you do? What does that even mean? It's very spiritual.
So, okay,
I get what you're saying. Go ahead.
This is an interesting question, and here's how I'm going to answer that question. I don't separate songwriting from taking care of my kid. Like, it's not like, hey, I need 4 hours now to go write a song. Like, that's not my process. I don't work that way. I am a songwriter while I'm living my entire life. While I'm talking to you, I just transferred a whole bunch of money to another bank account right before I called you, I'm still a songwriter. So what that means is I don't disconnect my musicianship or the way that I approach music with the rest of my life. Of course, you need space to create and you need time to write. But why I say that, and this is very important, is it's not like I pray for 1 hour and then go write a song. It doesn't work that way. That you'd probably make the worst songs that way as a spiritual artist. What you have to do is you have to connect with humanity. You have to connect with your weaknesses. You have to connect with your flaws. You have to connect with day-to-day life, the mundane things of everyday life. Artists don't do that well. They always want to just be super inspired. And then that's why artists are very high and very low, because they're either super inspired or they're super depressed. I don't believe in that. I believe in being consistent. I believe that we don't have to function from our emotions. We function from our spirit, which is greater than our emotions. So practically speaking, I get song ideas all the time. I have melodies in my brain all the time. I have different chord progressions that I'm working all the time. So when I'm actually creating a song, like I say, hey, I have 2 hours with the producer, that all I'm doing is I'm letting me and my producer vibe on chord progressions and beats and sounds. And then I'm taking everything that I've been doing, because I remember I don't disconnect songwriting from the rest of my life. And then whatever I hear, I just write and I go.
Yeah, gotcha.
I hope that answers your question. Basically, I don't separate it from the rest of my life. It's all the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've come across lots of artists, me and Melissa, and there's processes that.
Wait, do you see how God works though? You are no less of an interviewer because that happened. Like, that's the same thing as you interviewing me, is that you spent time with your kids just now and I got to see it. It's all inspired. It's all the same thing. Artists need to stop trying to compartmentalize your life. You're 100% father, you're 100% spouse, you're 100% interviewer. All in one.
That is good. Let me get my notes. Hold on. Yes. So every time I talk to you, it's good, man. Okay. You've created. We've talked about how the creative process goes, and you know, somewhat of the demise of artists when they do seek validation and worth from their work. And this goes back to the question. Now I'm kind of squishing in the identity and worth into this, because you've kind of answered that. You know what I mean? With you being an artist in everything you do, then then it tells me that you create and it doesn't matter. You know, not that it doesn't matter, but you're not getting your identity or worth from what you created, right? So
Correct.
So, and we've talked about this, but now we get into the destiny part, because when you get into to me, and this might be different from you, the longevity and destiny of what I'm creating doesn't fall necessarily on what I'm creating. It focuses on what I'm instilling and giving and nurturing into my daughters and my wife and all that kind of stuff. So it's weird, because it's like not about the art that I'm drawing, you know what I'm saying? Because the destiny that I will live, to me personally, will be in my children, right? Sorry, I'm not trying to make this about me, but I'm saying for your destiny part, how does that line work? So we talked about the identity and worth, and then what is the destiny of it? Like, you know, some people drop albums and then they become a legend or whatever the case may be, and their music lives on. But what does the destiny part within the creative lane that you're in, which is everything from what I gather, what does that look like for you?
In some ways, we'll never know.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I'm actually not plugged into the destiny of it, because when I used to be plugged into the destiny aspect of it, it got me into a lot of trouble. And what it did was it made me find my identity in the things that I was doing. And I wrote a whole book about it called The New Great. And it's about how I had to divorce myself from thinking too much about impact. See, I have an addiction. You know, some people are addicted to porn. Some people are addicted to drugs. Some people are addicted to fame or whatever. I have an equal addiction. It's not better or worse. My addiction is to impact. Like, I want to be squeezed like a lemon so that every drop that I have to offer is given to the world. Now, there are good things about that. I think more people should be like that. But for me, it became an addiction. Like I was like, God, just use me. I want to have impact. I want to do great things. I want to do great things. But you know what I realized over the last 3-4 years is that if God doesn't want to squeeze me like a lemon, and maybe he wants to use half of me, and maybe he wants to keep the other half to himself, then so be it. And my issues of significance and all of that have to be crushed. Maybe everything I am will only be for my 2 kids and my wife. And as much as I don't believe that, it might be. It might end with Lydia, Simone, and Soleil, and that's it. And maybe a couple of my friends, and then that's it. I am not the creator.
Mhm.
I am, the clay doesn't tell the potter what to make. The clay has to be okay. If you're gonna be used as a bowl, then you're gonna be the best bowl you can be.
Yeah.
Or it's gonna be a cup, you know what I mean? So I think like my addiction, I'm still dealing with my addiction. I'm a recovering addict of impact. And man, it sounds funny, but it will cause you to sin and make you, it will bring up the worst parts of yourself. And that's why I like calling it addiction, because maybe I don't have the typical addiction, like disorders that other people have experienced, but I'm just as broken and at fault as other people who go through that same.
What happened? You there? What happened? Hold on. Okay. That was very interesting. Okay. You left off on the addiction of instant.
Hold on, our battle is not with flesh, but it is with powers and principalities. All right, moving on.
Yes. So you were talking about the addiction of impact. That's I can totally relate to that, man. Um, hold on. I'm gonna switch gears here, um, because you did brush on people's, lust, porn addictions and stuff like that. And the reason why I wanted to switch gears on that is because right now there's so much turmoil and division, and people forced to stay home and all that kind of stuff. I've been getting calls. I've seen it that there seems to be a skyrocket of those types of addictions, that are rooted in depression, isolation, division, all these different things. With the current state of how everything is, um, and just with the addiction of impact that you had, what would you tell someone that is dealing with addiction on how to get out of it or deal with it so they can, get out of the mud? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the first thing with addiction is you have to know that, say you struggle with pornography, God loves you the same, before you watch porn, while you're watching porn, and after you watch porn. He loves you the same. And so what happens is, when we struggle with addiction, and even if you don't believe in God, you still feel condemnation. And what happens is we think that condemnation is going to help us have the resilience to not do it again. But what condemnation actually does is it doesn't give us resilience. It makes us give in even more, because we feel like we're not worthy. As a result, we feel like we're not worthy to have purpose because we struggle with such deep internal issues. And one of the things that I've realized over the course of this COVID season is, in order to even get by, you have to believe in some kind of concept of grace. Whether you prescribe to religion or not, you have to lavishly live in grace. And every day when you wake up, you have to realize, you say, today, I lavishly accept the grace of life that I don't deserve. And when you start to live in that space, you don't live in a space of condemnation or law, but you live with respect to the divine nature of God that he pours into you. And for me personally, I mean, I'm just sharing my example. Like, I hope that's not too Christian or whatever, but it is what it is. That's how I deal with my flaws. Like, I just know that God loves me the same, whether I figure it out or I don't. And I just rest in that. I don't get more points in heaven when I overcome something. I think it's wonderful when I do, and I think it's great that I could be formed into a better person and more like Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't feel like I get more brownie points as a result. And so that's kind of what I would say is, don't try to earn God's favor or earn your own favor based on your ability to conquer an addiction or not. Just know that you're completely loved, and that love is strong enough to break addiction.
Yeah, that's good. In the book, The New Great, you touch on a lot of these different points. Which section of the book do you feel would be the most beneficial to tell an artist right now for them to break the funk? I'm talking about the addiction side, but also the creative side, like you're in a creative funk, or back to just the scope of this thing with the racism, the COVID and all this. It seems like everybody's become so fragmented, confused, and divided physically, especially no work, not talking to people. You're left, I'm right, I'm black, I'm white. Everybody's divided, and what I see is happening is that everybody's just divided in the mind too. It's like they try to do artwork and then they think about, oh, that was a crazy video I saw of something burning, or COVID this, or you know what I'm saying? So they become divided. So as far as the book, what part would you take out and say this is a perfect chapter for right now, what's happening today?
Probably the first, I mean, I think the whole thing, but the first two things that came to mind are, one, there's a chapter called the Great Choosing, I think. I think it's called The Great Choosing. And it's basically the fact that you don't have to ask for people's permission to be chosen. Like, you're already chosen. It's funny how often artists, creatives, and anybody thinks that you have to ask permission from an industry or from a certain group of people or even your family in order to pursue the thing that God has put on your heart.
Yeah.
The first thing is, you don't have to ask anybody's permission, because you never ask somebody's permission to quit something. So why do you have to ask somebody's permission to start something? That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is, I have a chapter in there called The Great Completion. And it basically is anti-perfectionism, because Jesus was not a perfectionist. He was perfect, but he was not a perfectionist, which means he stumbled his way to the cross. And so basically, we need to be people who are willing to get out of our own way and turn in stuff. It's like the amount of artists that struggle with moving forward just because they don't have the ability to turn in something is astounding.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It's okay. See, everybody's always so egocentric that they want to make sure they put their best foot forward. And if you really think about it, that's like the most, I know people watching this won't agree with me, but that to me is like the most prideful thing you could say. Because what you're really trying to say is, you want to look and be and sound and appear better than you really are, right? Everybody says, oh, that was a stroke of genius, but you're not really a genius all the time. You just had that one genius moment. So stop trying to be better than you really are. Just be who you are. And if it has flaws, deal with, let us all figure, like when I was writing this book, there was a publisher that gave me a bunch of tips, and I didn't really agree with the tips. And what she was really telling me is, I want your writing to be better than you actually write. And I was like, I don't want my writing to come off better than I actually write. I want people to just see how I write. And if it's not good enough, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm completely satisfied. Same thing with my music. Like, I mean, I'm big on excellence and I really try to do my best, but at a certain point, I'm not that good. Like, I'm not that great of a rapper. I'm not, and I say that in my book, like, there are better rappers than me. There are better singers than me. There are better producers than me, but there's really only one me, and nobody can do what I can do. Um, and so I'm not selling talent, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not for your entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm giving you life. I'm not here to play a puppet and dance song for you.
Yeah.
I'm here to give you life through my imperfections. So if the polish is off, I don't really care. So artists need to stop being perfectionists. Just turn in your work, man. That's all you gotta do.
That is some good stuff. I like that. I mean, I totally agree with that. I think that that, you know, that's the beauty, like in my world, of a sketchbook where you're just drawing, and it's like, this is horrible, but you still drew it and you put it out, you know, because ultimately you're just oiling the machine, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
when you get into the, like, writing and all that kind of stuff, like you said that it was a spiritual thing, are you actually, like, how are you praying? Are you being led? Are you like, does a producer show up out of nowhere and you're like, that beat's dope? You know what I mean? Do you, I know that you said your creative process is tied into your life, but when you do pray, is there moments where something just is downloaded to your brain and you're like, oh, I need to write this down?
All the time. Both ways. Yeah, when I pray, I do get direct ideas, direct words, direct phrases, direct song ideas. When I put my girls to sleep, actually, like 6 of the songs on my last album, the melodies came while I was putting Simone to sleep.
Mm.
And I would just, she'd want me to sing things, and I would just make up stuff, and I was like, oh, that's gonna be dope. And then or a conversation with my wife, she'll tell me how she's feeling about something, and that will give me a lens into humanity, because it's my relationship with my wife and my daughters in which I see the world now.
Mm.
So they give me a firsthand view of how other people are feeling or thinking about things. Conversations with my friends, my mentors, people that I really admire and love. Um, all of that comes together in a beautiful way to help me see. The thing is that this might be different from sketching, or with songwriting, you're fishing. See, if I go on a piano and I just start playing chords, I will get a song for that moment. But if I play the same chords tomorrow, I'll get a completely different song.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, I'm not so tied into sitting there trying to find the best melody ever. That doesn't happen that way. You're just fishing, and it's just whenever you decide to record. Like if I say, Daniel, he's got a nice hat on, and that's what I just sang right now. But if I saw you and you didn't have a hat on, I would sing something else, and it's going to sound completely different. So I'm not so obsessed with, dear God, give me the best sounding melody on the best sounding. Like, that's not how music is.
Yeah.
We're just fishermen. We're just fishermen, and whatever fish comes out, that's what we roll with.
Yeah.
That's pretty, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good. I want to, you know, you said something really impactful that I want to home in on and spend time on. You said that you, when you talk to your wife and your kids, you see through their eyes how life is. Now, to me, that is a good dad doing good dad stuff. You know what I mean? Talk to the audience about the importance of your role as a dad in the house. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm talking like, you know, what does it look like for you in your day to day when your daughters are here, your wife is here, your brain's being attacked with creative, you got work, you got bills, you got all this different stuff. Like, how do you make sure that your dadness is even keel? You know what I mean?
Great question. I think it's interesting because some people say, oh, in order to be a good dad, you have to like not be so driven, right? Not be ambitious because you have to give all your time to your kids. Um, and I would say parenting is interesting because it's the only vocation that you have to function in your strengths and your weaknesses. So it's like if you don't know how to cook, if you don't know how to cook, then you can't just say, oh, sorry, guys, I don't know how to cook. It doesn't work that way. They have to eat.
Yeah.
So you better be willing to function in your weaknesses to provide for your kids. Same thing with being a spouse. When you're like, I'm actually a pretty deep introvert. Um, so I could actually go a long time without saying a word. But I wouldn't actually be a good husband that way. So I have to be willing to get out of my personality and stop having this entitlement with my personality, with who I am, my gifting, my creativity. It's not about me anymore. When you choose to love someone and when you choose to love your kids, it's not about you. Nobody cares what your Enneagram is. Nobody cares if you can write a good song. Like my wife doesn't care actually. I mean, she does, but at the end of the day, if I don't like take out the trash and provide, then nobody cares that I could sing a good tune.
Yeah.
So I think artists need to let go of this idea that it's all about you and your art. Man, it's not. Like if you don't do, I really hope you guys hear this in love, but if you don't create ever again, the world is still going to go on. God is still going to be moving. He wants you to create. He wants you to do your thing, but even if you don't, you are going to be just fine. Somebody needs to hear this. You're going to be just fine if you don't put out another record or if you don't put out another book or if you don't like you don't I understand as creatives you have to create, but look, I don't just create songs. I create a bunch of things. If you're a parent, you are a number one creative. You have to entertain your kids for 24 hours a day. That's like the most creative venture ever. It's way harder to do that than make an album, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like to be a good dad is to be all things. I have to be as ambitious and make businesses because that's going to model something for my daughters to look at. It's not just in me spending time with them all the time and singing songs to them and playing with them and feeding them and cooking and cleaning, even though, man, that's all we do. That's like 80% of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about that. At some point, they have to see how their dad moves with regard to the world so that they can look at that and be like, yo, I'm going to do that. I want to do that. Because the way that we raise kids, it's not really in what we tell them, it's what we display. And it's in what we show. So I would say like, go as far as your kids allow you to go and then retreat when they need you to retreat.
Yeah.
Keep going. There's no such thing as balance, right? By the way, I don't believe in that at all. There's no such thing as balance. Like you're going to be skewed one way or another. It's just about having the discernment to know when to go far and then when to retreat. Hey, don't push your child that much because she can't actually handle it. So retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, Rajeev, like don't go on tour right now or whatever. Don't try to record an album right now because your marriage has something more precious in it. So then I have to retreat. And it's hard. You know, you're gonna fight it out sometimes and you're gonna go to bed feeling unfulfilled sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna wake up in the morning and wonder why it's Groundhog Day again, and then you're doing the same thing over again. Good. Feel the tension and die again, so that God could do something precious in you.
That's good. I was going to ask, what advice would you give to dads right now? Well, I'm going to ask you this anyways. You kind of gave some helpful information there, but what would you tell dads right now who have never stayed home so long, and now they are dealing with a crying baby, poopy diapers, food, a nap, you need to eat, your job's calling. all of these different things. What would you tell to a dad right now in the midst of all that stuff to make it mentally easier for him to navigate all these different emotions? You know what I mean?
Your singleness and the days when you were not a dad is not better than now. So that's number one. Get that out of your head. The days when you had more time or whatever, it's not better than what you have right now. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you think that the places that God has called you to, the greatness that you actually have on this earth, on this side of eternity, is a function of, basically, if you think that being a dad is what's preventing you from all those things, then your dream is way too small. Basically, what I'm saying is, the places that you're gonna go, that you're gonna actually change the world in, have nothing to do with your time and you needing to be more independent or you need to be more free. No, it has everything to do with God opening doors that you can't open by yourself. Mm-hmm. So stop thinking that by you fully committing as a father is preventing you from living the life that you've always wanted. It is actually through your fatherhood and through you being a dad that you will actually change the world. It's not because you can travel more, or it's not because you have more time to work. Those are all broken ideas of work that happened when sin entered into the world. And I don't want to get too deep on that, but because I can stay there for a long time. But that corrupted idea that we need to work in order to produce more and to be greater in whatever our vocations or professions is not real. That's false.
That's good. All right, I'm gonna. We're on the 40-minute mark, so we have 20 more minutes, and I want to really home in on this. Let me get this other one. Okay, with everything that you've said, and then also the integration with technology, social media, all this kind of stuff. Because back in the day, you were an artist, there was no website, there was no Instagram, there was none of that kind of stuff. And now it almost seems like that has to be something that you're doing all the time, right? And, you know, I've seen it where people are just, you know, if they're not talking for a couple seconds, they're already like this, you know, strolling or whatever the case may be. So how would you talk to people whose lives have just been inundated with social media and the concept of having to be on it so much? Like, what would you tell those individuals that are just, you know, that's basically what they do: art, post, likes, Facebook, YouTube, all this kind of stuff? Like, how do you, what is your take on social media? You know what I mean? How does it affect people?
Well, I hope whatever I say is going to be helpful, because I'll rip apart social media in like 4 minutes. But what I would say is, have you ever been fulfilled one time? Just think of one time. Have you ever been fulfilled after you scrolled? Okay, take a moment, think about it. After you got 205 likes on a post, what did it do for you? It sent a quick dopamine response to your brain, like, oh, I'm valued, I'm significant, people are paying attention. And then what happens 5 minutes later? So I don't need to say too much more about that. You guys determine how social media either increases your life or decreases it. For me, I think social media is good. I don't think it should be on a phone. I think social media should be on a computer, like it used to be. I think you should check in on it like you check your LinkedIn. I know y'all check your LinkedIn like once a month, right? Or once every 2 months. Nobody cares about LinkedIn. Check social media like that. Like, communicate, express yourself that way. Social media is not the devil. There's nothing inherently bad, but what it does is it plays on your natural human tendency of fearing that you're missing out on something, and fearing that the life that you're living is not sufficient to fulfill you and entertain you and keep you whole. And so what I would say is, if that's you, if I'm speaking to you, check out of it. It's not good for you. You're not going to miss anything. I guarantee, like, I'm off of social media for the rest of the year. I think I've been off for like 2 months. I had to check back in because I think somebody needed me to do something on Facebook or Instagram, both actually. And I said, okay, God, I know I'm on a fast, but I'm gonna just like scroll really quick. And it was as if I never left. See, you think social media is on the cutting edge. No, it's antiquated. It's already backwards. But you think that you need social media to keep you present and engaged. And it's not doing that. It's actually making you in the past. But if you want original thoughts and ideas, and if you want to make real money, you need to get off social media and get to the future, because you're already antiquated if you're looking at if you're really concerned about what other people are doing, then that means that you haven't really found the seed that God wants you to water.
That's good.
But don't be condemned, because there's nothing inherently wrong with social media.
Yeah, that's good. So, I mean, on that note, what, people, how does that look? Like, do they take a break for a month? Do they go to the beach? I mean, how does that look like? Like, what would you tell someone who's like, dude, I'm just so addicted to this, I don't even know what to do. Tell me what I should do.
The first thing you should do is take it off your phone. Keep social media. Just take it off your phone. Because look, your phone goes with you wherever you are. People's lives should not go with you wherever you are, right? People's lives should be put in place. So keep it on a computer. Don't put it on your phone. That's like number one. That's like, I will tell everyone that I'll never have social media on my phone. When I need to, if I need to get on Instagram, I will re-download it on my phone, check it, and then delete it off of my thing, because I'm an impact addictor. I'm sorry. I have an addiction of impact.
Yeah.
So if I post something, guess what my addiction is going to cost me to do? It's going to say, has this landed? Are people engaging with it? So I'm not going to play that game. Like, I'm not going to play that game. So that's just for me. I don't really know anybody, not one person, who thinks social media is fully healthy. Like, even people who are like, I don't even think Kim Kardashian thinks that way. So, and she's like the queen of social media. So I would say, don't put it on your phone. Keep it, and then keep it on your laptop. So that's number one. Number two is call it what it is. It's an addiction, and that's okay. Call it what it is. Don't try and be too cool for it. Nah, you're addicted. You're addicted to see what other people are up to. Yeah. And number three, I would say, what is the need inside of me that it is fulfilling? So for you, I've confessed to the world now that social media was not, honestly, I'm not like a curious guy. Like, I don't really care what you're eating. I don't care if you're eating an avocado sandwich.
Yeah.
And I don't even care if you're doing great things. Like, that doesn't do anything for me. But what I did care about is if I have impact, if my voice matters, if I'm significant. So I knew I had to cut that, man, because I don't want to live like that. I don't want my daughters to be that way.
Yeah.
So I'll be a super hypocrite to still live that way. I don't want that getting onto my kids or anybody. Like, I look at your kids like mine. Like, I don't want your kids to be that way. So I need to fix it so that there's hope.
Yeah, I get you. That's good, man. Well, we are, I'm going to wrap this up. I do want to call you though after this. So I'll hit you up. But all right. So that was a great interview, man. Thank you for your time. My name is artist Daniel Quinones. This is MLoveizmTV. And Jeevo, why don't you do all where people can get your book and all that kind of stuff? I will put that in the links for the YouTube thing, but let people know where they can find all that.
Sure. Okay. You can read my book. It's on Amazon. It's called The New Great: Finding Your Own Blueprint. I think it's good. But if you don't read it, it's okay too. You can listen to my music, Jeevo, Jeevo. It's on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. But if you don't want to
TV. Purpose-driven art.